Video is just going to be a short introduction to the nature of stakeholders and why we should think about stakeholders rather than just focusing on shareholders within the company these days. So stakeholders are any person, group who have an interest in your organisation. They can be internal, employees, managers, directors of the company, but they can also be external. They could be your shareholders, customers, the competition, suppliers, the government, lenders, the banks, for example, and perhaps also the local community. Traditionally, it was always felt that companies, when they were operating, when they're being managed, should really just be focusing on making sure that the company's operating effectively, efficiently, being productive, making profits for the owners of the company or the shareholders, so that they're getting a return back on their investment, they're getting dividends. And for a long time, it was felt that that was really all that an organisation, all that a company had to worry about. But when we look at the environment companies have to operate in today, we know that they have to be more aware of what customers are looking for, making sure that they're identifying customer needs, customer expectations, and that they're meeting or exceeding those expectations. They have to think about their impact on the local communities they're operating in. They have to think about perhaps what customers and employees expect in terms of ethical behaviour as well. So if they are perceived as having a bad ethical reputation, customers may go elsewhere, or they may struggle to find the better employees. Again, the employees will be looking for somewhere that is going to give them a working environment a working environment that's going to appeal to them as well. So these things are all really important for employees and for other stakeholders. So companies more and more have to be aware of these different factors, have to be considering these and taking them into consideration when they are thinking about managing their organisation. So with stakeholders, we're thinking about understanding who these different stakeholders are, being aware of what they're interested in, and recognising perhaps if the company is looking to introduce a change, for example. Are there any of the stakeholders that might oppose that? Are they likely to encounter any resistance? And then thinking about who are the different stakeholders, where is the power? How much influence do they have? How much power do they have in terms of being able to cause problems for them or block any attempts that they might have to make changes happen? So this is why we would do a stakeholder analysis, so that we can understand our stakeholders and make decisions appropriately in terms of how to deal with the way that they can behave, the way that they can influence, so that we can actually get them on board and supporting us in what we're trying to achieve. As I said, I will do a separate video on stakeholder analysis. So today it's really just about looking at stakeholders more generally. So you've got a basic understanding of what or who stakeholders are. So now that I've discussed who the stakeholders are, and I've briefly mentioned the idea of stakeholder interests, going to look at that in a little bit more detail now. So you probably need to break it down and look at each stakeholder individually, because they will be interested in different things, but ultimately it's, why are they interested in the organisation? What are they trying to find out? What are they concerned about? And what do they want from the organisation? So if we think about employees again, an employee will want to know that they're going to get paid. They'll want to know that they've got job security, that their job is safe. Then maybe want to make sure that they've got a good working environment, that they're going to be safe at work. Maybe they want interesting work. So all of these things would be their interests of the employees. And each stakeholder will have different interests. A supplier will want to make sure that they're supporting an organisation that's got a good reputation and that are they want to be associated with. They want to make sure that they continue to have that relationship, that they're continuing to supply their products to the company, and they'll want to make sure that they're going to get paid, and they're going to get paid on time. There's not going to be any hassle, not have any problems. So they'll want to make sure that the company's trustworthy and reliable, but they'll also want to make sure that the company is viable, is making money, so that they'll continue to get business and that they'll continue to get paid rather. So you need to think about the specific interests of each individual stakeholder. And once you've done that, you then have to think about the influence of the stakeholders. And this influence can be positive if things are going really well. If they are happy, then the influence should be positive. So if we have employees who are happy to come to work, they feel respected, they feel valued, they're happy to go that extra mile, they don't feel stressed, so they'll come to work, they'll put in a good day's work, they'll put in a lot of additional effort perhaps, they'll help the company be more productive, produce better quality goods and services. So they've got happy employees, and their influence may be that they can push production, raise the quality of the products that are being produced. But on the flip side, if they're not happy, if they feel that they're not valued, if they feel that they're being treated badly, they may not come to work as regularly, so they may phone in sick, they may leave and go and get a job somewhere else, or they could come to work but just not put in the same effort. So they could be just doing the basic that they have to do to get by, to be sure that they'll get paid, but not do any more than that. So the quality may suffer, the quantity may suffer, so they may not be producing as much. But if staff are off sick all the time, or they're stressed, they may be making more mistakes, or they could go on strike and disrupt production, for example. So something like that happens. Productivity could be affected, could mean that they're not able to deliver and meet their orders. So if they're not delivering their orders, they're letting down their customers, they're not meeting the deadlines or the timescales that they've agreed. So if these things happen, that could affect not just their immediate productivity and their immediate sales, but it could damage their reputation. They could lose customers. Customers will go and look for somewhere else that's more reliable, more trustworthy. So these things, the influence of the employee can be quite significant depending on whether the influence is positive or negative. And you can take that idea of the influence and apply it to all the different stakeholders. You take the government, for example. Their interest is going to be that the company is profitable, that it's going to be paying its taxes, that it's going to be complying with any legislation that the government introduces, all of those sorts of things. But their influence, if the company is not paying their taxes, if the company is breaking law, ultimately the government could close them down. It could put them out of business. So the influence maybe not it may not be an imminent threat. It may not be something that's particularly likely, but they do have the power to do that. They do have that authority. So when you're thinking about the influence, you're thinking about how can they impact on what the company's doing? How can they impact on operations, on the company's ability to actually do the job that they're they're trying to deliver the goods or the services that they're in business for. And obviously, most of this I'm talking about business. I'm talking about the private sector that are generating profits. But stakeholder theory, we can apply it across all sectors. So in the public sector, you will still have lots of stakeholders. They may be different stakeholders and they will have different interests and will be able to influence in different ways. But you need to understand the organisation and you need to understand all the range of different stakeholders that can be concerned or have an interest in that particular organisation. So I hope that has been an interesting presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And as ever, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch.